Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I am your host, Whitney Sewell. I hope you have been considering growing your team, and first by hiring that executive assistant and finding that Class A talent that's going to help you move to the next level with less stress and get there more efficiently. So I want to continue that today. I hope you've listened to show 800 and then 850, where I've gone into different details of this process and some different things that I've learned recently to hire the top talent, which I've recently done. So, but first, I thought I would go over a couple things. Again, if you're looking at YouTube, I'm holding up the book Topgrading just so you can see it by Bradford Smart. I encourage you to have this in your your home library so you can reference this. It's on Audible as well. I listened to a lot of it while I wanted the book in my hands because there's numerous documents in here that I also have an assistant or somebody on our team to recreate in Word or just type out different things. I'm going to go over some of that today with you. We're going to hit the Prospective candidate questionnaire, which is so crucial in this hiring process. And I want you to understand why it's important and why you need to go to these steps. But I wanted to back up a little bit and talk about A players a little bit and who they are. And because he does obviously a great job in this book of just detailing what an A player is. And there's some examples here I thought might be useful to think about. And it says paper plants managed by A players have 94% higher profits. More talented investment banking associates are twice as productive as those average in talent. Return to shareholders for companies with top talent practices averages 22% above industry means. Top 3% of programmers produce 1,200% more lines of code than the average. And top 20% produce 320% more than average. Top 3% of salespeople produce up to 250% more than average. Top 20% produce up to 120% more. Okay, so I want you to think about that when your team, I mean, this is saying salespeople, in general, or programmers in general, or return to shareholders, there's a big pull there that they're talking about. And when you're thinking about your team, there may only be, when you're first getting started, this may only be the next person on your team, or maybe you have a business partner and this would be, the first person you all hire, or, it's a much smaller pool here. And it's just, it's so important that this person is the right person and that you've spent enough time to ensure that you're going to the extent necessary to ensure the correct hire. And I wanted to share with you too just what top grading is. There's a good definition in this book. Again, I didn't come up with this. I'm just reading this part right out of this book, but it says top grade to fill at least 75% of positions in the organization with high performers, which is A players, by hiring and promoting people who turn out to be high performers at least 75% of the time. So think about that. And again, a lot of times this is focused on, kind of very large organizations, and if they're hiring, 50 people a year, 100 people a year, or 1,000 people a year, depending on the size of that organization. Obviously, it's so important they have these steps in place, but I think it's just as crucial, and he even goes into that in this book, that this is for any organization, doesn't matter the size, but especially if you have one person and it's you or two people, this hire is so important. This person could just make or break you over the next year or take up so much time from you, as far, positively or negatively, depending on who they are and their abilities. Another thing I wanted to point out, the definition of an A player. And so a high performer, we talked about it a little bit, but someone in the top 10% of the talent pool available. So B players would be in the next 25%, C players would be in the bottom 65%. So an A player is really best of class, in that top 10% of talent available. And so and obviously that means, at the given compensation level, just in any specific company, maybe or in a particular industry or location, specific accountabilities, available resources. There's numerous things there that you need to think through, right? When you're thinking about who are the top, top talent, top A players, and how are we going to find them? And so, I've been going through that over the last few solo shows, show 800 and 850. I think this is 857. And so, I want to help you through this process. But today specifically, I want to go over this document that helped me so much in finding that person. And so we talked about in show 850 that job description. And the top thing on the instructions at the bottom of that job description said, actually said to apply, please submit the following via email to, and then I provided the email address that I wanted them to submit it to. And the top thing said, number one, it's a prospective candidate questionnaire. It says download here, and it's a link. And so, again, I made it a link. So they have to download it. They have to have some technical ability to make that happen. Many actually did not. They were not able to download it. I would, if they asked, I would send it to them anyway, just in case, there was an issue. I wanted them to still have the opportunity to submit this document and go through the rest of the steps. But I did take note of some of those things. And I'll share some of that as well. When I was going through this process, I had, like a folder on my computer that, it said like business development, and there's numerous things in there, things I've learned from notes from different books and downloads and whatnot that I've had over the years. But one specific way that I did this was just, I had, an employee recruitment folder. And then, I would list every person that applied. As soon as I received their information through that email, I would make a folder for them. I would immediately download all their documents to that folder, but I would also print that email to PDF and put it in that folder. Because remember, there's numerous things that I asked them to do, and I'm going to tell you about a couple more in a minute. But that email is going to show us, did they answer the other questions? Did they tell us, did they send a cover letter like I asked and PDF of the resume, because many people are going to send that in a Word document. They're not going to send it, like you've asked in a PDF. Did they tell you in the email how they heard about the position? Did they submit the Strengths Finder and the Colby A Index, those other assessments or reports, like you asked. So that's how I'm going to be able to go back and find that. But also, which I'm going to go over in another show, is that tandem interview, that we completed. My business partner and I, we interviewed the final people, and I want him to be able to look at, these documents. I want him to know the standard. This is what we're asking, and I want him to look at them before he and I talk about a candidate. And so I don't want to help him develop his opinion about somebody or how they submitted something. I want him to develop his own opinion and then us discuss it at a later time, right? Or maybe even document some things that we both think, about specific people or just their skills or their abilities, the way they presented, the documents, did they do everything we asked? And then he and I meeting about that. And I'll go over a little more of the tandem interview that we completed at a later time. But on my computer, I was just, as soon as I would receive somebody's information, obviously I would respond, say, thank you, for that information. It has been received. We will be in touch soon, with further steps or not, one way or the other. So I would download all that stuff. Whether I knew right away or not, I wanted to document what they had sent just in case it ever came back later, just through this process. So the prospective candidate questionnaire, so important. Can't stress to you enough. This document saved me a ton of time. And when we had hundreds and hundreds of people apply, this helped me to narrow it down. How did they submit it? Most people are going to look at this and they're going to just run away right there. They're not going to complete it. However, most of it's very simple, but it still took some time for them to complete it. And, I don't want somebody that's going to halfway do it. And when you apply or when you put a job in Indeed, you're going to get so many people. Obviously, they already have a canned, presentation or resume already in there. They're just going to hit apply. If it sounds, like anything they might want, they're just going to hit apply. And however, I put that same job description in Indeed, and if they just hit apply on Indeed and there's no other communication, they didn't do what I asked, they did not receive any communication from us. Or I think maybe we tried to respond to say, sorry, you were not selected, but that was it. We did not say, go into much detail or anything like that, because I wanted to ensure they read the instructions and could follow the details that we asked. So Prospective candidate questionnaire. It says, or at the top it says directions for completing this form. Number one, we use this form to gain insight into past work history and core competencies to better assess a potential fit with our organization. Please fill out this form in its entirety. Do not skip any questions. I think it makes it pretty clear. Do not skip any questions. So, yeah. Simple, right? Number two, if you need additional space, type your additional content into this Microsoft Word document. Number three, please know that before an offer of employment is made, you will be expected to set up reference calls with every prior supervisor for the last 10 years. Now, did you hear that? You're expected to set up reference calls with every prior supervisor for the last 10 years. So that was a big shocker for me when I first started learning about that. And what Topgrading calls that is the TORC technique, and that stands for Threat of Reference Check. And so it says the TORC technique, the Threat of Reference Check technique, which lets candidates know at every step in the hiring process that a final step in the hiring process is for them to arrange personal reference calls with former bosses and others, that we want to interview. That would be for us. They're going to set that call up with us, or obviously this new boss or whoever's interviewing to talk with. And so, it talks about this threat of reference check scares C players away. And it says, good, exclamation mark. So, C players can't get their former bosses to talk to you, and C players wouldn't want you to talk to them anyway. This is right out of Topgrading, what I'm reading right there. It says, decades of experience confirm that high performers do get their former bosses to talk and are happy to make the arrangements. So, it says, tell them every step of the process. Even before you begin, they need to know. So that was something very new. I'd never heard of that before, but I do think that helped save us a lot of time. It does encourage you in the book to not skip that step because you do want to follow through on what you said you were going to do. But that was crucial. And when they see that, I'm sure there's a lot of people that said, nope, there's no way I'm doing that. I'm not having them talk to this person, or they're going to leave maybe a specific job or career that they had off of this form, that you're going to have to investigate a little bit and figure out some time discrepancies and things as you're going through this form. So, what I found, though, is that a lot of people, have worked for maybe one or two places in the last 10 years, or maybe they haven't even been in the workforce for 10 years, but they're very qualified, which my, executive assistant, that's the case. She hadn't been in the workforce for 10 years, but she's had some great success and done very well at one or two places, in the years that she has been working. And so she was very qualified, had great experience that I was looking for. But so it wasn't an issue, and she was fine with talking to a supervisor to speak with me, a current supervisor, and past. So the number 4 is, once this form is complete, it says, please email to, and I have that email address in there again, and it says, and write career history form, your name, in the subject line. And so, quote, career history form, and it has your name, so very specific in the subject line. And if applicable, please include a copy of a formal resume. And it says you may also include a cover letter and PDF of your resume. And it says a strengths finder top, same thing as before, as the instructions. Colby Index are optional. So, it lists those again there, but it again tells them a specific way to send this to us, and tells them what to put in the subject line. And that will help you later on as you're organizing lots of resumes and lots of emails. It's going to be helpful, that they do that. Not all will. And that's not a complete disqualifier. It's just one more thing to show you their level of attention to detail. So right after that, it says, disclaimer, returning this form does not guarantee employment. This form is simply an exploratory data collection tool. So then it goes career history form. It says this information will not be the only basis for hiring decisions. You are not required to furnish any information that is prohibited by federal, state, local law. Again, I'm not an attorney. If you feel like this is too detailed, you can talk with your attorney. But I feel like most of this is great information and just to see how they respond. But right off the bat, personal information, obviously their name, their home address, street address, telephone, those things. Position applied for. It says write in if there's not a specific position to which you are applying. Ultimately, we only had one position, but still, did they complete it? And then the next line is earnings expected. That's an interesting space there to see what they put in there. All right, what do they expect to earn, and do they complete it? Many will leave it blank. They don't want to, they're not bold enough to tell you what they are looking to earn. Then right off the bat, it says business experience. It says your present or most recent position. It says the firm, has their address, business type, obviously the employed from and to times. And then it says their base salary. And did they get bonuses? What was their initial compensation, final compensation? What was their title? Who was their supervisor? Their name, title. And then it says, what do or did you like most about this job? What do or did you least enjoy? Reasons for leaving or desire to change. Did you resign voluntarily, or were you asked to resign, or were you terminated? Please explain. And so, pretty important questions there. You need to know, why are they desiring to leave? And a lot of times, if they've had numerous positions, and in this document, it's going to continue to tell you this, depending on why they left, there may be a series of things happening there that's going to only come into your company as well. And so this just provides great ways for you to have better questions during the interview process as well. After that, it says, your present or most recent position continued, and it says the second round of our selection process will include a reference call with your previous supervisors. The below questions will be posed to them in the call. Please rate yourself as you believe your former supervisor will rate you. So very interesting questions here to see how they think their previous supervisor or current supervisor feels about them. And it says on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being very low, 7 being extremely high, please rate this person's resourcefulness to do the following. And it says to seek out and seize opportunities, go beyond the call of duty, passionately find ways to surmount barriers, be an action-oriented doer, achieve results despite lack of resources, re-stimulate languages projects, lives a just bias for action, and do it now personality at work. I mean, that's one question. How would your supervisor rate you on these things? The next one is please rate this person's intelligence to do the following. Demonstrate the ability to acquire understanding and absorb new information rapidly. Is a quick study. Note, this competency reflects neither motivation to learn nor willingness to accept change. Rather, it reflects the intellectual capacity that, when combined with motivation, results in learning. All right, and then the last one, please rate this person's integrity in the following areas. And has ironclad integrity, does not ethically cut corners, remains consistent in terms of what one says and does, and in terms of behavior towards others, earns the trust of coworkers, maintains confidence, puts organization's interest above self, does what is right, not what is politically expected, fights fair, intellectually honest, does not play games with facts to win a point. So some important things there, and obviously they are judging themselves, but it's just some good information, good things that you can ask them about during an interview. And then it's going to go through the same thing for every previous employer over the last 10 years. If they've been employed 8 times in the last 10 years, and they're serious about this position, they're going to fill this out, what I just read you 8 times, and then it just has, that on the same sheet numerous times so they can fill it out or copy it for the next, position that they were employed by or before. And then towards the end, there's another section that says, it asks, which employers do you not wish to be contacted? So just in case there were a couple employees or employers that, we shouldn't contact, they can explain it there and tell us why. That doesn't mean that, they wouldn't get the position, but it may be something that we talk about, obviously, during an interview. And then we're going to ask about military experience. Do they have it? What branch, date entered, nature of duties, what was their rank, things like that. Education, we want to know where they went to college. It was nice that, my assistant does have college. She's very educated. However, that was not, an essential point for me. I was much more concerned about their integrity and their drive, to have integrity, to do what's right, to not operate in a gray area, similar to what one of those questions said. That's so much more important to me than their level of education. It's great. I want them to be very experienced, as experienced as possible, but you cannot teach them to be integrous. That is something I need them to have before they come into our organization. I can train them to be a good assistant or to underwrite deals or look at markets, which is not what my assistant does, but we can train them to have certain skills, but I cannot train them to have integrity. So just keep that in mind. Education is very important, and sometimes too, there's a thing on there too for extracurricular activities, honors, and awards. Some of that will also show you just drive that they've had for many years. Were they driven in school and in college, and, did they earn awards? Just something to keep in mind. Maybe they did other things. Maybe they don't have college, but man, they had to really push to do this other thing that they did. It just shows a lot about their personality that could be very important. And then it says, list additional education, what undergraduate courses, did you take and why? Did you like them, not like them? Part-time and summer work. I would stress to think about that too. Did they work hard? What did they do with their summers? They're going to put it on there, and how is your education financed? That just tells you a little bit about them as well, depending on how they answer that. But part-time summer work, I find, not everybody works in the summers when they're out of college. But how hard did they work? How hard did they have to work? Maybe it's going to show you some more about their personality, or maybe there's other courses or seminars they were taking at that time. There may be memberships that they're a part of, or different things that you want to ask about. There's a lot of other things here that we could go over, but right now, just think about, you got to get to know this person quickly, right? And you're going to ask them about weaker points or areas of improvement, all those things, of course. But then you're going to ask about, are they willing to relocate if that's important to you? I left it, even though I didn't require them to relocate. I left this question on there. I wanted to know if they were willing to relocate for this position. Some were willing, some couldn't, with their spouses in school or they have a family, situation where they can't move, or whatever, or their spouse has a career or job, where they can't relocate. But there were some that were willing. So I left it on there, even though it wasn't required, because I wanted to know that. And then it says amount of overnight travel acceptable. We don't require overnight travel, but again, I want to know, how committed are they? And it says, what are your career objectives? And then the last page says, do you have a legal right to work in the United States? Have you ever been convicted of crime, other than a minor traffic violation? And then it says, we ask every candidate. Here's a big one too that will help you to narrow this down. It says, we ask every candidate to handwrite a brief response to the following question: why are you considering leaving your current position? So if you notice, I said, we ask every candidate to handwrite a brief response. You'll get everything in there. Many will not answer it at all. Some will actually print it out and handwrite it like you've asked, but obviously that's another step. And you're just going to check to see, did they read it? Can they follow detailed instructions? Again, it's not a deal breaker if they didn't do it correctly, but it is another method to say, they did read it, they did get it, or they didn't. And then there's a place to mark referred by. So who referred them if it did come through a referral, and then there's a place for signature and date. So obviously I went through that document very quickly, and there's things about it too that we won't have time to go over today, but that is the gist of it. I encourage you to have something like that, because that document and requiring them to complete that and having specific ways for them to send that to me was crucial in narrowing down the process. Like I said, we had, I don't even remember now. I said it in show 800, but I can't remember now how many hundreds of applicants we received through Indeed. And then there's also, I don't even remember now. But tons of applicants through referrals as well. And we did end up hiring through Indeed. And so I know I've said numerous times that I was going to tell you which way we were successful, because I did track it. And I wanted to know, where did the most qualified people come from? And, where did we end up hiring from? And it was through Indeed. And so my current assistant, she applied, completed everything very well to the detail. To every detail. And so, obviously she made it to the top interview, or to the interview process, but obviously most did not. We only completed 4 interviews. And I'm going to go into that in more detail in another show, but we only completed 4 out of hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And this document helped me narrow that down. Did I read every detail of these documents? No, I didn't have to. Some did not submit it at all. Some submitted it halfway. Some printed it out and filled it in by hand, extremely sloppy. I'm sorry. If you do have to complete it by hand, that's fine. But it needs to be legible, right? It just shows me your attention to detail, shows me how much, you really care about this position and how you're presenting yourself. Because how they presented themselves to me there is going to reflect how they're going to present themselves to, investors and clients and people I work with in the industry. And even greater detail, it should have been better when they're submitting it for the job. So obviously, pretty quickly, that eliminates them. But it's going to tell you so much about that person right off the bat that's going to help you to narrow that down. In most cases, after I do that, we go through that, I would respond, like I said, and say, I'm sorry you were not selected for the position. We'll keep your file, on hand, maybe for future opportunities, potentially. If they were somebody that I felt like we might hire in the future or look at again. But I hope this was helpful for you to think about this prospective candidate questionnaire. I'm going to do another show on the just dual tandem interview that we did. Nothing too crazy there, but there are lots of questions that you need to think about asking someone that I didn't know about. I thought I did pretty good interviews. I've been in an interviewing position, whether it's a state police and as a federal agent. I've been interviewing people for many, many years, not in this context, but still, whether it's on the side of the road or, in a situation as an agent, interviewing lots of people, and obviously on the podcast, right? Interviewing 850 people or more here over the last couple of years. But this is a little different, right? This is a little different. You do develop a skill there. But there's certain questions that I had not thought of before that I learned through this book and through other books that I'm going to share with you in the next show. So I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you are moving forward to grow your business and your brand, and I hope we're helping you with that. Again, if you think of questions that you'd like me to ask on the show or something you'd like me to cover, email us at info@lifebridgecapital.com. You can always message us through the group too, the Real Estate Syndication Show. I have not done a great job of being very active in there, but I'm going to try to do better about that in the near future. But I hope that you will reach out and let us know things that you need to know to improve your syndication business. If you're an investor, reach out through lifebridgecapital.com, hit the Invest Now button, or go to our Contact Us page. That's how you will get in touch with me. Our team will reach out and schedule a call, and I look forward to speaking with you and learning about your goals and helping you achieve those through real estate and investing in large commercial real estate. So I hope you have a blessed day. I look forward to hearing from you and talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.